The sheriff had just placed handcuffs on a 70-year-old cowboy when the old man whispered something that made the entire town go silent. "Tell Judge Mercer. I finally came home." Sheriff Cole stared at him. "What does that mean?" The old cowboy didn't answer. His name was Elias Boone, though most people in Red Creek simply called him Old Boone. He lived alone in a weather-beaten cabin 3 miles outside town, where the prairie stretched endlessly beneath the Colorado sky. For 40 years, Elias had kept to himself. He raised cattle. He fixed fences. He helped strangers who broke down on the trail. And he never spoke about the past. Until one cold October morning. A bank messenger had been found dead beside the old stage road. His horse was gone, his money pouch was missing, and beside the body lay a distinctive silver spur. Everyone in Red Creek knew those spurs. They belonged to Elias Boone. By noon, Sheriff Cole was riding toward Elias's ranch with 6 armed deputies. When Elias saw them approaching, he didn't reach for his rifle. He simply stepped onto the porch and waited. "Elias Boone," Cole shouted. "You're under arrest for the murder of Thomas Bell." The old cowboy looked toward the distant mountains. Then he slowly held out his wrists. "I wondered when you'd come." Cole frowned. "You're not even going to deny it?" "No." That answer spread through town faster than wildfire. By sunset, everyone believed Old Boone was a murderer. Inside the jail, Cole placed the old cowboy in a cell. "I found the messenger's blood on your saddle," he said. Elias looked at the floor. "I know. And the missing money? Check the abandoned church outside town." Cole leaned closer. "What are you talking about?" Elias finally looked into his eyes. "There's a man in Red Creek who has been waiting 40 years for me to say that." Before Cole could ask another question, Elias turned away. The next morning, the courthouse was packed. Farmers stood shoulder to shoulder with merchants, ranchers, and cowboys. Everyone wanted to see the old outlaw who had supposedly returned to his violent ways. Judge Samuel Mercer entered the courtroom. He was 63, respected throughout the county, and known for never showing emotion. Until he looked at the prisoner. The judge froze. His face went pale. His hand began trembling. Elias Boone slowly lifted his head. Their eyes met. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Judge Mercer whispered something no one in the courtroom expected. "Elias?" The old cowboy gave a tired smile. "Hello, Samuel." The judge gripped the edge of his bench. His eyes filled with tears. And suddenly, the courtroom understood something terrifying. This wasn't the first time these two men had met. It was the first time they'd seen each other in 40 years. And whatever happened back then had been buried for a reason. Judge Mercer ordered the courtroom cleared except for Sheriff Cole, Elias, and the court clerk. Then he stepped down from the bench. "You're supposed to be dead," Samuel whispered. Elias gave a quiet laugh. "Most people thought so." Samuel's eyes remained fixed on him. "You disappeared the night my family was attacked." Elias nodded. "I did." Cole looked between them. "What happened 40 years ago?" Neither man answered immediately. Finally, Elias spoke. "Samuel and I grew up together. We rode together. Worked cattle together. We even served in the same cavalry unit." He paused. "But after the war, we came home to Red Creek and discovered the town was being controlled by a gang led by a man named Silas Crow." Sheriff Cole stiffened. Everyone in the county knew Crow's name. He had supposedly died 40 years earlier. Elias continued. "Crow wanted Samuel's father's ranch. When Samuel refused to sell, Crow threatened his family. One night, the Mercer ranch was attacked. Samuel's father was killed. His mother was badly wounded. And Samuel's younger sister, Clara, disappeared. Everyone blamed me, Elias said. Samuel's voice broke. You were seen riding away from the ranch. I was carrying Clara. The judge stared at him. What? Elias reached inside his coat and pulled out an old, folded letter. I found her alive that night. Crow's men had taken her. Samuel covered his mouth. Elias continued. I chased them for 3 days. I found Clara near the border. She was alive, but badly injured. Why didn't you bring her home? Because Crow had men watching Red Creek. If I returned, they would kill her. So you left. I took Clara somewhere safe. Then I came back for Crow. Cole listened silently. Elias had spent decades hunting the man responsible. But Crow had vanished. Elias eventually disappeared too. Until now. Then why did you return? Cole asked. Elias looked at the judge. Because Clara is dying. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. She was alive all this time. Elias nodded. She asked me to bring you this. He handed Samuel the letter. The judge opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sentence. Samuel, I never blamed Elias. He saved my life. Samuel sank into a chair. For 40 years, he had believed his best friend had betrayed him. For 40 years, he had carried hatred toward an innocent man. Then Sheriff Cole remembered something. The bank messenger, he said. Why was he killed? Elias's expression changed. Thomas Bell wasn't just a messenger. Cole leaned forward. He was Crow's son. Silence filled the courtroom. Elias pointed toward the old silver spur lying on the evidence table. I didn't kill him. Then who did? Elias looked toward the courthouse window. The same man who has been stealing money from this town for years. Cole's eyes narrowed. Who? Elias said one name. Deputy Harris. Everyone froze. Harris had served beside Sheriff Cole for 12 years. He was trusted. Respected. And standing outside the courtroom door. But before Cole could reach him, a gunshot exploded through the courthouse. The clerk screamed. The window shattered. And Elias Boone suddenly threw himself in front of Judge Mercer. The bullet struck Elias in the shoulder. He fell to the floor. Sheriff Cole drew his revolver and rushed outside. Deputy Harris was already running toward the horses. Cole chased him through the dusty streets of Red Creek. Behind them, Elias was carried into the courtroom. Judge Mercer knelt beside him. You saved my life again. Elias smiled weakly. Old habits. Cole returned 20 minutes later with Harris in handcuffs. The deputy had confessed. Thomas Bell had discovered that Harris was working with a group of thieves who had been robbing stagecoaches and blaming the crimes on dead outlaws. When Bell threatened to expose them, Harris killed him. Then he planted Elias's silver spur to frame the old cowboy. But there was one thing Harris hadn't known. Elias had recognized Bell. He knew Bell was connected to Crow's old gang. And he knew someone in Red Creek was still protecting the Crow family. Harris had assumed an old man's silence meant weakness. He was wrong. After the confession, the courtroom slowly filled again. Judge Mercer returned to the bench. But he didn't call for another trial. Instead, he walked toward Elias. The old cowboy was sitting against the courtroom wall, his wounded shoulder wrapped in cloth. Samuel stood before him. I spent 40 years hating you. Elias nodded. You had every reason. No, Samuel whispered. I didn't. The judge removed his black robe. Then, in front of everyone, he embraced Elias Boone. The courtroom went completely silent. The sheriff looked away. Even the hardest ranchers in town wiped their eyes. Samuel pulled back. Why didn't you ever tell me? Elias looked toward the courthouse doors. Because Clara asked me not to. She wanted you to carry all that blame. She wanted you alive. Samuel closed his eyes. Then Elias reached into his coat again. There was one final photograph. It showed a young Samuel, a young Elias, and a smiling girl standing beside a ranch fence. Clara. On the back were 4 words. Some debts take a lifetime. Samuel stared at the photograph. Then he finally understood. Elias hadn't abandoned them. He had sacrificed his own name so Samuel could rebuild his life. The sheriff approached the judge. What should we do about Elias's arrest? Samuel looked at the handcuffs still hanging from Elias's wrists. Then he removed them himself. This man is not a criminal. He paused. He is the reason I became a judge. Elias lowered his eyes. Samuel continued. And today, after 40 years, I finally get to call him what I should have called him all along. He placed a trembling hand on Elias's shoulder. My brother. Outside, the sun was setting over Red Creek. Elias stepped onto the courthouse porch. For the first time in 40 years, he wasn't running from his past. He was walking toward home. And as the old cowboy looked across the prairie, a young woman appeared at the end of the road. She was sitting in a wagon. Her hair was silver. Her face was older. But Elias knew her immediately. Clara. Alive. She raised one hand. Elias stopped breathing. Then he smiled. The entire town watched as the 70-year-old cowboy walked slowly down the road toward the sister he had spent 40 years protecting. Behind him, Judge Mercer stood crying on the courthouse steps. And from that day forward, Red Creek remembered Elias Boone not as the outlaw who disappeared, but as the cowboy who sacrificed his entire life to save someone else's.